They're gonna
What
love it.
people are going to make
How
of
could
it.
they not love your bum?
Oh, thank you. I worked very hard. I did a lot of squats.
Robert Palmer pounding in the background.
Exactly.
Not
What-
actually
what
in
more
shot
can
or
we-
anything.
I knew nothing. I don't know if it, for me at least, in America, I didn't know anything about it. But when I read the script, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'll move. This is good.
British dynasty.
It is.
Put that on the poster.
I just lined you up and you knocked that out.
Sheep thrills.
Sheep thrills, love that for them.
If you don't start spending some of that fortune making decent television, you're going to lose your business.
Rupert Campbell Black, champion show jumper put out to pasture. It's an arrogant brat.
Alex, we
Yes.
have to start with Rupert's very first scene.
Yes.
How did it feel to intro Rivals with such a scene?
Well, it remains to be seen because it's not been out yet. It felt fine to shoot it. I'm slightly nervous about when everyone sees my bum and the rest of me.
They're gonna
What
love it.
people are going to make
How
of
could
it.
they not love your bum?
Oh, thank you. I worked very hard. I did a lot of squats.
Robert Palmer pounding in the background.
Exactly.
Not
What-
actually
what
in
more
shot
can
or
we-
anything. The tune.
Just off camera, he was pounding.
And how did it compare, like, being the character of Rupert, how did being Rupert compare to other roles you've done in the past?
I mean, he definitely is amongst the more sort of suave, debonair and sexually active of the characters I've played. It was, there were challenges to it. Obviously, it's a weird thing to have to do, but it was a great part. He's such a, for all of that sort of side of him, he is actually a very three-dimensional and multifaceted character with lots of different sort of sides to him to pull out and explore. So it was a great pleasure. I loved it.
And David, obviously, people know you for a lot of very well-known roles, Doctor Who, Good Omens, Broadchurch. How did playing the role of Tony kind of compare to those big, iconic roles of yours?
Well, it comes with a great deal of expectation, it turns out. I mean, people love this book, and it has meant a great deal to people for generations now. So that always takes a bit of a deep breath, knowing that you're taking something on that you don't want to break, because there are people who have very clear ideas of what these characters are, or have expectations for what they're looking for. But you just, in the end of the day, you're just going to go, well, I have a script and I have the version of the characters that I can give you, and this is how it occurs to me, and these are the people I'm working with. And it felt like such a well-appointed cast and such a good, you looked around and thought, this is all perfectly cast all around me. So unless they've got it really wrong with me,
Yeah.
there must be, I must be able to bring something to this. So, you just have to kind of take a deep breath and dive in.
And going into it, did either of you base your characters or draw inspiration for your characters from anywhere?
Well, what was so great is that we had the source material, obviously Jilly's books, but also the scripts are so brilliant and so fully well realised. And there was a lot of that all around the sort of unit base and the production office, there were photos of the 80s and 80s world, and that was sort of really useful. So I mainly tried to go from the material, and as you say, you kind of meet the material and think, often it's like, well, this is the only way I understand how to play this. There's not loads of options. This is how it's occurring to me, and I can't do anything else.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about the relationship between Declan and Cameron, because it's quite a feisty one.
It starts out really feisty. It starts off really, really competitive. And, but it turns at a certain point, and there's a moment where you see the adoration and the respect for each other, and also the trust that he has in Cameron to lead him.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the respect thing is big for Declan. I think he was quite surprised to see somebody new come in and to take direction of somebody new, and that new person is a woman. And that's tough for Declan, I think, but he quickly sees that she's the best person for this job. Like she's like him, and he sees himself as
the best person.
As the best person for his job. So I think both of those kind of worlds collide. But
she encourages you
she
to remind
does.
you of who
That's
you,
right.
all of who
That's
you are
right.
too.
I think they really help each other out. And we were talking about this earlier, which I think is a real thing. When you get the fights out of the way early, I think it sort of opens up something in the relationship more. You're not like waiting for that fight to happen. You've already done it. So the ground is clear for the work.
And their first scene together was one of my favourite scenes because I loved it how it was revealed that Cameron's actually a black American woman and not a white man, as Declan thought. How was it for that to be kind of your first introduction into the series and that to be your first scene?
I absolutely love that aspect. I love that people have no clue like what's going on, and he's like, now where the hell is this damn Cameron at? Where's this cameraman? And the reveal, I think, is such a sweet reveal to see like, oh yeah, I'm Cameron. I'm your boss, and you're gonna deal with it. And I love how he throws the briefcase, and he's like treating her like she's just like a PA or an assistant, which we love. But yeah, no, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's a nice introduction to the character and their relationship.
And their relationship, it speaks so much to their relationship and how they have to overcome it and get to this, find the balance of working together. And I mean, she works closer to no one than him.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I mean, throughout the series, I feel like both of your characters are quite similar in that they're both really loyal to their partners. So, like, you're really loyal to Tony and you're really loyal to Maud. But how was it to kind of explore those, like, loyal relationships on screen with partners that actually aren't loyal to you?
Oh, that's a really interesting question.
I really like that question. Okay,
Yeah,
so I'll start by saying a lot of these relationships kind of can come off transactional. I definitely think obviously there's love for Tony and definitely loyalty, right? But then there's also she may put up with a bit more because she kind of has to, and it's something that she has to deal with in order for her to be at this company, if you will. So
it's like they're both playing the
they're
game.
both
getting
playing
what
the game.
they want.
They're both. It's very transactional to a certain extent. And we talked about this earlier with a good bit of the characters. It's just like everybody is kind of figuring out. They know what they want. How do I figure out how to get it? And what do I have to do? What do I have to sacrifice? Who do I do? What part of myself do I have to sacrifice?
Yeah.
And
Will I get that back? And all of these dynamics
and the selfishness that can go with it. But she's definitely holds Tony down.
Yeah. I think Maud and Declan have a really interesting relationship because I think there's a lot of guilt with Declan. I think he's neglected that marriage for a long time and it's beginning to vibrate and rattle a bit more and the wheels are coming off and he realises it's primarily his fault. But he just, I don't know, I think there's like three loves in his life. I think it's his wife and his work and his kids and not really in that order all the time, and that's the problem. So there's a certain allowances, I suppose. They have something like, I don't know how you describe it, like almost a bohemian kind of a relationship or something. It feels like quite hedonistic sometimes with Maud, and I think he allows her to be her best self and to try to regain happiness through maybe seeing other people or having, some kind of relationship that he can just look away from, I think there's trust and there's love there and there's a grounding to the relationship that feels very not Rutger-esque, but yeah, he's just, I don't think it interests him, that aspect of life, yeah.
And this isn't a series that shies away from sexuality, nudity, being comfortable in one's own body. Was that ever a daunting prospect for either of you coming into the series?
I mean, it's never something, it's not something I look forward to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to do nearly as much as you do, but I mean, everyone has a bit of that kind. I mean, this is, part of the story is about how people manage their sexuality for good, for ill, for in positive ways, in negative ways. That's part of what Jilly wrote, and that's the story that we just decided to tell. And I think it's important that you meet that and that you don't shy away from it. And part of your job as an actor, I suppose, is to get over yourself, and because you're trying to let people into the intimate lives of these characters and what that reveals about them. So, I mean, all the scenes are there. They all inform the characters, inform the story. So you have to focus on that side of it, the storytelling aspect, and get over yourself.
Yeah. It was also really important to know that the group of people we were working with and working for had the right interests at heart about why we would be doing these scenes and what, as you say, what they were doing with the story. And it was so immediately apparent that everyone cared about the same things and wanted to look after us and make sure that we were comfortable and really focus on why each scene was important in a storytelling or character development perspective.
Yes, all the right safeguards were in place in terms of the on-set care for everyone. And also just by chance, the group of people, I think, were all out to look out for each other.
Sure,
and care for each other and make sure everyone was feeling comfortable and safe and had what they needed to tell the story without feeling like, they were compromising themselves in any way.
And both of your characters, I feel like, obviously, as you said, they are both very three-dimensional characters, but they do have moments where they lean on the villainous side. What kind of appealed to both of you in wanting to audition for these specific roles?
Well, look, you kind of want to be part of something that feels like a big, splashy series.
Sure, yeah.
These things are exciting. These are events. And, of course, from an actor, that's something you want to be
Absolutely.
part of. But then the characters are complicated and nuanced, and that's something that means it's a story you want to tell. That's what you want.
They're the fun characters to play, aren't they? The ones that are layered and complex and contradictory and can be viewed by different people from different angles and be different things at different times to different people. That's what you want as an actor.
Yes, if it was just a villain for the sake of being a villain in some sort of pantomime way, then that might feel slightly unedifying. But none of these characters do anything that you can't understand the reasoning for. It's all there, and they make sense. So it's that's the juice of the job, isn't it? To be able to kind of go, well, this character does something which objectively you could describe as awful, but for them, it's what they need to do, and that's the story you want to tell.
And obviously both of you are amazing in these roles, but would you have ever wanted to have auditioned for another role in Rivals?
I mean, to be honest, they're all such brilliant roles. I'd have a crack at any of them.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all good fun, aren't they?
They're great.
Everyone's got stuff to do.
Yeah, I could handle either Danny or Aidan's moustache, if that's the main
I'd like to
focus.
see Aidan's moustache.
Yeah.
And I feel like the great thing about this story, there's so many stories, so many characters, but I feel like it really tackles themes of like class and politics in quite a hilarious way in the vein of the drama itself. How important do you think it is bringing those conversations into such a light-hearted series like Rivals?
I love the way that the show sort of reels you in with this kind of bright, poppy, sort of, colourful 80s feeling. I wouldn't say like a music video, but it's very sort of slick and slowly draws you into much more complex issues and thought-provoking issues about, as you say, politics and sexual politics and power dynamics and class and what people will do to get ahead, monogamy, adultery, all of those sorts of things. I think actually what I'm so proud of in the show, and I think that everyone involved has done such a great job of, is actually exploring really interesting and relatable topics, but with, at the same time as it being really fun and really funny and really fun to watch.
You can't help but look at the politics of another time through the lens of today, and that's what that's what happened at every stage of the process. And I think it's fascinating to look back on the 80s and the way that the politics, the sexual politics, have changed, and also the ways that they've stayed the same. And I think just sort of presenting that from today, looking at then, is interesting in itself. And we don't shy away from any of that. Some of it's pretty ugly.
Yeah. And David, obviously in episode 4, I feel like that's a big turning point. Tony has a major meltdown on set. How did that feel for you as an actor, kind of smashing up the set, getting to scream and shout?
In some ways, it's very liberating. It's very therapeutic. In other ways, you're very aware that you've got one take to not mess it up because there's only one set, and you're only going to get one proper go at this. So it's a mixture. I think we did it last thing on a Friday, so you were very aware that everyone wanted this to go well so they could all go home.
I think both of your characters as well, they both go through instances where they're othered in various circumstances, being Irish, being Black and American. How did you feel about the way that the series kind of tackled those conversations around race, prejudice, sexism?
Well, I think what really good TV does is that it holds a mirror up, doesn't it? It shows us the way we used to do things and the way we do things now, and what should we bring with us and what should we leave behind. And I think with this, I don't know, whatever, 21st century lens that we use to peep back into, circa 1986. We see that, I don't think we gloss over it. I don't think we change the way, you know, the tone or the cadence used to be in these rooms, in these offices, in these relationships, but it feels very authentic and true. But I think we can very quickly tell from watching the show, it's like, wow, it's not that long ago that this kind of behaviour was accepted.
Right.
And it does feel quite glaring and quite, wow, how and why did we ever get away with that? So yeah, I think it's presented a lot in our show, those kind of moments where you're like, that doesn't exist anymore, thankfully.
Right, and I'm also too, like, when I choose characters in TV shows or films, it's like, who's sparking the conversation for change, and to see where we were in the 80s and what would absolutely not be okay today, and see how far we've come to, and then also see the changes that still need to be made, but we definitely highlight and mirror a lot of that. And to me, it was really important, even for Cameron to be a black woman, to be chosen to be a black woman in his time. We didn't have that in the 80s, that we saw, you know, a black woman actually, or a woman really, just running a company. Like that's something a very powerful and bold choice made on Disney's part, and the writers. I thought it was really, really brilliant to show what that looked like, and I'm proud of that. Yeah.
And how familiar were both of you with the original Jilly Cooper novels before doing this?
I knew nothing. I don't know if it, for me at least, in America, I didn't know anything about it. But when I read the script, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I'll move. This is good. And I love just how smart Cameron is in this. And yeah, I'm really excited for everybody to see it, especially for the fans. Fans of Rivals are going to be so excited, and I hope that it is as exciting for them as it was for us making it, and they see the visual that, you know, when you read a book, you have like this visual in your head of what the characters are going to look and feel like.
I don't think they'd be disappointed.
And I think they're going to be really happy with what we did.
I think so too. I mean, I was aware of who Jilly Cooper was, obviously, and being in Ireland, we're not that far away, and the book's very popular there, obviously, but hadn't read any before we started shooting. So yeah, it's one of those great things as an actor you get to do. You never imagine you'll read these books. I suppose they wouldn't have been on my radar, and then you get to read them and you get to be introduced to a whole new genre of work. Really, it's fun.
And what kind of can you tease about what's to come in the final episodes of Rivals, and how?
We don't want to give that away, because then you wouldn't need to watch it.
Yeah.
I guess in those final episodes, what kind of emotional journey do we go on with your characters?
I mean, it's pretty big for all of the characters, which
is.
I think there's a beautiful pace to our show. You know, you've only watched the first 4.
Yeah.
I do feel there's a gear change around that time, I think, for the next 4. And we see the characters really kind of zone in and get after what they're after, and the consequences and repercussions of that. So it feels like the stakes are higher.
For sure.
You know, yeah.
I think for Cameron, there's a vulnerability that you'll be able to see as time goes on a bit more. You see a bit more into her personal life, into the things that she wants and desires. So yeah, and I would piggyback on that. It's a journey, an emotional journey for all of the characters over the 8 episodes, and it's really fun and fascinating. Even for me, when I watched all 8, I was just like, oh my god, like it builds, and so many of the scenes, like we talked about earlier, that we may not be in and we kind of forgot about. Like you read it, but you're not there filming it because you're not in that scene, and it reminds you of just like the different beautiful layers of all the characters. Is kind of cool.
Yeah, you were talking about that earlier, just different relationships that happen and scenes that we've not been around for, but we just read so many times in the script, and you get to see it, and it's really special, actually. Yeah.
And if you were to describe Rivals in a few words, what would they be?
Oh my God, I always struggle with this thing. I never say the words that I should.
Okay.
I get the words later. Oh, you have the words?
Yeah, I got them. Okay,
Throw some words in there,
I'll
babe.
say hot, steamy, sexy, funny.
Love it.
This is good. This is really good. I'm going to say sheep, champagne, and cheap thrills.
And power.
Sheep thrills.
Sheep thrills, love that.
Delicious.
Delicious. Delectable. Should we go for the D's?
Yeah.
Dastardly.
It's a bit dastardly.
Debonair. No.
Yeah. Diplodocus.
Yes, exactly.
Dynastic. A
Yeah.
little bit. It's a bit like dynasty.
That's what I said when I watched it, actually, yeah.
The British dynasty.
It is.
Put that on the poster.
I just lined you up and you knocked that out.